making few updates. We'll start in about a minute. Hello everyone. So happy to share that we're now in the 5th week of microbiology BIOC17. Congrats everyone. I know many of you are thinking a bit about your well, before I move further actually, with regards to a few things. Okay, everyone can see me, right? I also want to make sure there is a bit of a difficulty for one of the displays. It doesn't always open. Everyone on that side, let's just confirm. Good number of people. Everyone's here. Diane, and can both of you actually see the screen behind me? Okay. So a few things. One is, yeah, I know many of you are, or hopefully many of you are, have actually seen. Actually, first off, hopefully all of you are well, like turning out well, not too stressed out or feeling ill. But in terms of like announcements, hopefully everyone also saw this. Has anyone not seen this announcement on purpose? From week 5 yesterday, essentially I sent it out. Because I TA 2 courses, it's a bit difficult to navigate announcements, but essentially I try to help out students to give them a bit about what they need to expect and what they could prepare for. In terms of tips, pretty much today's lab is separated into 3 sections. You have them also shown on the board for the can't see, but essentially, I'm going to try to get this in full screen. Okay, pretty much we're going to focus on what we have for the slides for the first hour and a half. We're also going to mingle with the other 2 parts of today's exercise. And I've essentially grouped them up to complete as much as you can for today. Pretty much the majority of the practical, or half of it at least, is going to be devoted to essentially the middle bench, including viable counts with the Spec 20 and microplate analysis. Part 2 is essentially completing analysis of last week's results, right? That includes transformation efficiency, the plaque assay. Also have it listed there, streak plating as well. There's one more, conjugation plaque, transformation, streak plating. And then the third component is pretty much reflective questions shown on the PowerPoint. So keep an eye on that because ideally, we'll have to complete the lab with reflective questions, review of unknown bacteria assignment, and if there's time, additional things. But in the meantime, because, and considering the tips I have here, it's very important that you just be mindful from what you have present in the lab manual. The lab manual is updated, right? From purpose, you probably saw the suffixing Jan 10th change, because essentially we're going to only do one spec 20 read for turbidity measurements for the first exercise. So hopefully that clarifies it for everyone. And we'll briefly go through the slides to clarify a few other questions. But importantly, just bear in mind that as well, you're keeping track of, like you're maintaining pace as groups with the times that I also have there. I'll hopefully put a timer either on my phone or on screen to let you all know. But briefly, let me just time this as well. Oh, I think something disconnected. Any questions in the meantime? So, okay, let's go ahead. Everyone can see the screen? Dana Dayan, group 4, you guys can all see it, right? So let's pay attention, everyone. I'm also going to put a timer, or at least in about 4 minutes, I want to complete at least half of the slides shown here. Pretty much we know that we'll be focusing for the assignment on generation time. Generation time, for those that don't know, is essentially the doubling of number or in size, or actually number or turbidity of your bacterium in time, in a certain amount of time. And so our lab is going to do 37 degrees of nutrient broth incubation, essentially. And essentially, we'll be using the spec 20s in the middle bench. For those that don't know, a lot of things have changed from last year. So essentially, these are going to be updated shortly. But essentially, I'm going to be fine-tuning the spec 20s shortly. And then when your group is ready, because we'll all be taking, let's go down actually. So yeah, actually, before I move further, we have observance values, which is what the spec 20s show, right? For turbidity. Turbidity indicates essentially the cloudiness or the density of bacterium in the flask or vial, and essentially, or in any solution. And then, so I'll try to make, apart from that, the turbidity essentially is useful for determining the concentration and hopefully density, which you'll see being correlated with your viable counts and for calibration. So essentially, on Quercus, there should be semi-log paper available, so that way you can actually plot these values, not the one, not the y-axis that you see it as here, but with specific details like the optical density readings, which in our case, we're not repeating for the spec 20s, but they'll be done directly on the microplate reader. And then essentially we'll take out 5 mils from the middle bench. I'll be helping each group in pairs or blocks of 4. So just bear that in mind. And then for essentially the viable plate count, it's where you have the plates on your benches to essentially repeat what you did from last week, similar to the plaque assay. But in this case, and actually similar to spread plating, but in this case, essentially the serial dilutions will be done with the E. coli at T equals 0 and at T equals 30, 60, and 90. So just bear that in mind for values for yourself as well. And then a microplate reader is pretty much what I'll be using once your group is done. So essentially to set up, and actually before I move further, any questions regarding at least the first 6, 7 slides? Any questions? No questions. So to clarify this, on your benches, you have the saline solutions, which will be useful for essentially creating the dilutions that you need. You use LB broth essentially to start off. Every group has 1 vial, but essentially E. coli is going to be from here. So the goal is essentially to just bear in mind you have three main tasks. You first start off with your T naught or T0 here, wherein I give you essentially your E. coli, 5 mils each in each flask, and then you actually begin with doing your step 20 reads and then placing it when you're done, essentially inside the incubator, following your viable. So you have, remember, 4 sets. Okay, so you have 4 different groups of 3 plates each for each dilution. So just bear in mind, you have 3 for T naught, 3 for T30, 30 minutes after incubation at 37 degrees, and then another 3 for 60 minutes in, and another for 90 minutes, which is why we have it separated in that way. And then the direct counting, we'll talk about it afterwards. But essentially, if your group is ready on that, well, I'll show you what you need to do at that time. This should be okay for now. Any questions just before I end off? No questions. So just, I would say, bear in mind, you label, as we've talked about before, you're cognizant of timing. I'm going to start, actually, I think the keyboard is disconnected for some reason, so I can't do it on the computer here. I'll do it on my own or on my phone. But essentially, you guys can do it as well, just to keep track of time for yourself as soon as you begin. So remember, as soon as your group gives me your vial or your flask, and I'll just start prepping things down. You can label your plate and your tube. But once your group is ready, then that's when I add in your E. coli. That's when you have T equals 0. And you start preparing for your plates, and you expect 20 readings. And I forgot to mention this, microplate reading as well. So I'll talk about, like, I'll say for now, get yourselves ready. I'll prep things here. Try to be ready in the next 2 to 3 minutes. And you can have each member of your group focus on labeling a certain component. It could be your flasks, your tubes, etc. Group 5. If in case if you need this, you guys have everything labeled? Can you just confirm everyone else in the lab because I forgot to mention this, but you may have to separate into pairs depending on how far your group goes. So just be mindful of coordinating the different tasks that I mentioned and also showing your manual. Shane, does that mean something sweet? And I have to actually calibrate this on it. Give me, I would say, 2 minutes. If you wait, please, you can also ask me further questions you have. So for introduction, we'll be placing it inside the security column. Okay. Here. So, you can supply. Okay. Bring your, give me a moment. I'm just gonna blank. Okay.
No, it looks worse. Like it literally looks like plastic. It somehow looks worse than this.
I thought you didn't want to get the transcript because it's like the line.
Yeah, I did it.
Are you doing that too?
Look at it. Also, like caffeine with it.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just gonna do that. Cool.
There's this
But it was also the measure.
thing.
I don't remember what that was though.
I remember we had watermelon. Because that this watermelon is already water. Like they got to crush up actual fruits, and our fruit is already water.
Okay. Okay. No, but it just measures how clear.
Yeah.
Like you measure whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I don't understand is why it looks like this. Unless you actually breathe into it and wait for it to like grow. Like when you're like with the vegetation. It's not
So
even.
you can also start getting your Bunsen burners ready after they've adjusted, sprayed 70% ethanol. I'm just press 20s take a minute of time to calibrate. So I'm just having to do a few things here. If anyone wants that. Remember everyone, aseptic technique. So also label at the edge of your plates with the 4 labels I mentioned in the past. The exercise, the dilution factor, the bandwidth, the current point. So technically, there's 5 different pieces that were added in this week. Everyone paying attention. The 5 pieces that you're doing include your group number, the practical number, the dilution, the time point, right? Because it could be 0, 30, 60, 90, and sensitivity. You can also include other additional information that is such a function. Okay.
Kissing him ever. But Ernie was only doing because he has a sideburn. Sideburns?
No.
What? Where were you?
In the lab probably.
Oh, sideburns. I think I had like a little crush on sideburns.
Okay.
But then sideburns couldn't really speak English, so then Dave was like there a lot of the time. And yeah, so I actually have no idea what his name is, but
If he does
you guys know what you do, right?
Yeah, you're gonna put an aliquot of E. coli into
You know
here.
how?
You're supposed to tell us.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay.
So after that,
Then we swirl it.
and then after that,
Then
like what we have to do.
times 0.
So if groups are ready, they can start coming in with their flasks. Just bear in mind, as soon as we touch or actually swirl in your E. coli, that's your times 0. And then we'll go through each step of today's practical, hopefully with ease. One spec20 measurement. Take out your readings for the microplate reader, and then 1 mil, or sorry, 0.1 mils, which hopefully you guys have this pipette. Everyone has pipette, or even just pipette canisters. Grab the pipette canisters that you had from last week. You can grab them from that end, because this place will maybe be a bit busy for just one bench. So I would say grab them accordingly. In the meantime, your group can come in, and I'll hopefully show you what's. Yes. Okay. So once again, okay. Then clear the class. That way. The funny. So once your time is ready, then you can actually place them 5 mils into your sticky bets as well. So your and then you can continue on the microplate reader 1 mil from the same class, and then 0.1 to your plate. That's over here.
No, I think we should put 0 to 1 from here or from the 5.
And so it's going to be added in. So the 0.1 will be added for each of your plates, which is from this part.
Okay.
But I'm gonna take your question and add 5 mils from here into there, but the 5 mils will also be included for your defects from your You have many materials, but
How's that accepting?
yeah. So I tried to actually.
Yeah.
I know it sounds odd, but that's the way we know that. The Collins swab itself is not really coming in close contact, but I do need to make sure that we use generally. If I'm not mistaken, will be using. So when you're ready, you can start flaming. You flame that, right?
Yep.
Then you can just rinse it. Sorry, stir it around. Come closer to the other side actually, because you have to do your time 0. So because Do what I mentioned.
Oh, we have to leave this.
I labeled it.
I have to note the time. Put it and then do this one. And the light.
Then so after her bit, I need you to do the following. You have the values.
Yeah. What about yeah, go back.
So, I'm just going to repeat the process for group three. Just make space for group three. So now I'm just going to go through each group one by one. Please make sure everyone that you're being mindful of instructions and timing, because I want to make sure that you're all able to do all counts. We don't have a stable site. All groups can support to another group with the class. Yeah. One more group I need. Okay, perfect. So all of you, at least the ones that are holding the flask and you're gonna come by, please close the tunnels. So because that way we can be as efficiently as possible. It's open because it's gonna be I'll do each we do 5 mils for each group. I've suspended. I've also blanked as a bet 20, so you guys don't have to read too much about it. So now you're both at time 0. So now you can move it up. I just need to make sure everyone's Because there are a lot of flasks. Maybe it's difficult, but
Did you do the one blank room by himself? I don't know why it's taking so long. Letting us do. Yeah.
Humans, it's going to let you know you have to go all the way inside to the very bottom. It's really fun, but I'll show you guys that. Just be fun when you come back. Yes. So everyone, I just want to make sure you're paying attention. You need to keep track of time. We're going one by one to make it efficient, but just to clarify, 0.1 mils is what you're taking out, right? For your so 5 mils is that's what we just did earlier, but 0.1 mils for your viable counts is what you're going to do, and then you're going to do it in serial dilutions like what we did in the past. Then you're using those plates to essentially spread the amounts that you have for 0.1 mils in each dilution. If there's any questions, let me know. I'm just going to go straight ahead to other groups. Please remember, when your group is done, essentially, please let me know when you want to take it back into the incubator. I know it's a bit messy, but it's just water. And you have to go all the way in. It's like a tank. You have to go all the way in to see the fish. Our case, the bacteria. So just try to do that. Continue your group 2.
Right.
This one. Name. We're going to do this process. Bear in mind, there's only people back. Because you may have to. So you can begin claiming. Then you listen. Just really like comes and confident.
Yeah.
And then I want to flame it again. And then incubate. Hold it. It just incubate. And then stir.
Did you guys label all the tubes? Did we label all the tubes?
Of the -4, it's the yeah, minus, yeah. Right, yeah.
For everyone, I'll make mention of common questions once you have them, but please bear in mind that you're not ordering, just focusing to complete today's task as efficiently as possible. Where is Rabb? Can I put it in a different one? So you group 6. Is there anyone else? Well, what I just said is as well is being mindful. When you're in a multiple time, you just wanna maybe another minute or two time so that we can also keep it on the subject as well. I know we're doing it, so just make sure you bring another person. Here, I'm gonna play twice before and after. I'm gonna take out 5 notes.
Yes. Yeah.
Now you can. Rid as much as you can.
No.
Sorry, that just gave me the response. Were you group 2 or just group 2?
Yeah. It's already done.
So you do so this for everything else. We're gonna let you know that we're gonna follow as much as like possible. If you have questions or more, but can you move forward with a lot of keep discussing it, especially plates. When you guys are dealing with your plates, make sure that you have the Bunsen burner on and that you have the plate as close as you can as possible towards the plated the Bunsen burner itself. I just that But I don't think that to get now, okay, ready to.
Yeah. It's your one in here, right?
Is this your guys'? It's fire. I have no idea. Let me see. I don't even. Wait, what? I think you honestly just. Go for it. I have no idea. If there's space. Okay. The ball not solid. Sorry, what again? That's perfect.
Once you get this done, I want you to essentially completely go up. There's one more.
One million, one in the head, and then. Yeah, you want it, one.
So, to get. Then you just have to pull it up from the top of the list.
They both say 1 mil, but one says 1 in 100 and one says 1 in 110. Yeah,
Uh,
so I'm confused because it's like, I don't know.
we could try.
Does it different?
I think.
No, these are 5s. No, these are 5.
You can also use your pipette as well, like the regular pipette.
Oh,
Because some instructions haven't been specified, we can maybe just.
okay, yeah. So this one says 1 in 100.
It's all over the place.
This one says 110. Sorry.
So I'll take out.
Yeah. So these two are different. Which one?
Both are technically the same. Reason being is because they have 10, so it says 1 to 100 because it was the digits.
Okay.
So that way,
So just the tape.
yeah.
Okay.
Both are technically the same.
So to get 0.1, you would just have to raise it to here.
If you want to pick up one, we'll go all the way up to that.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, okay.
Thank
Where
you.
should I get?
You can place in the market.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we need to get a thing.
Oh, can you grab it?
You want this one down, maybe? First off. Hopefully everyone has labeled their class. Give me 1 minute. When you're done, you can actually put it back. Um, Sorry.
Yeah, just.
Any questions from anyone?
There's also this one. Yeah. Yeah. There's about like 6 7 like for example.
Yeah. Right. It's like yeah, but it's okay. Wait. Okay.
So let me just clarify a few things. Remember your tubes. So first off, we have, alhamdulillah, this microplate reader on. It's going to go on for 2 hours. The keyboard also is now functioning, which is nice. So the microplate is on. You've done your Spec 20 results. Back in the day, you do the Spec 20 results every 15 minutes. So it's easier for you guys now. You only have to do it once, and it's at the very beginning. So the Spec 20 results, you have an absorbance microplate reader I'm doing. So you guys are already taking care of that. So pretty much what you really need to focus on is the survival counts and then the direct counts when you have time. Now I should go down. Microplate is going to go every 15 minutes. It's going to record. Don't you put it in?
It's just gonna go in every. So you're just measuring.
I'm gonna, yes, so it's the same, just to clarify for everyone else as well. The microplate reader is not going in and out with the same incubator flask. The one that you have in now 37 degrees, it's already essentially automated to exist with the tubes, sorry, the aliquots that I added at the very beginning. So what's going on for the next 2 hours, taking recordings every 15 minutes as it preheats. So just bear that in mind. Other questions? Oh no, the time is actually when we actually place in the coli. The moment I place it. Yeah. Do you guys have that time at least? Which time do you have? Okay, perfect. It should be inside.
Right?
Yeah.
So if we take like 10 minutes and it's sitting outside, then we should
Assume that like continue with the time that you the time. Essentially, like include those 10 minutes. If you wanna move in for another 2-ish minutes, an extra 2 minutes, that would be better because at least you still maintain within the 37 degrees mark. And then
it's been 20 minutes inside. And it's probably been like 15 outside.
34. Okay. Wait just until 20 and then you go.
Okay. We gotta do it quicker. Then there is
Yeah. Oh, yes. Thank you. That's where the yes. Or
Okay, for everyone. One is that when you're placing back your flask for the 37-degree water bath, please pay attention. Fine. And every group, please pay attention that you're placing back the shaker because you want to make sure everyone's flasks are all essentially in urination. They're shaking as they are in 37 degrees, and then you press it back and. That's okay. That's okay. The other point for everyone, please make sure that your pipette tips are fitted in nicely. Because sometimes if they're loose, they could fall while you aren't aware. You don't want to run the risk of bacteria being up over it. Try to be as consistent as you can. If you find that maybe get an extra 5 minutes or went on a bit longer, they just count as you are moving forward. In the meantime, you could go forward with part 2, looking back at the 3 plates from last week, as well as conjugation and transformation. Start in the second bridge. If you haven't collected them, you can find them there. If any group is actually 45 minutes into their incubation, they could start getting ready their direct counts. They could do this actually for doing this slide right here for exercise 2. There's 2 time points you can do. I recommend if you can do both, that would be great. One is minimum, and essentially you have 45 minutes and 90 minutes. So folks, I just want to make sure you're paying attention while you're also keeping track of time, 30 minutes each time for your plates. With your reps for the dilutions that I mentioned from the previous slide, please pay close attention as well to the 45-minute and 90-minute incubation, because you'll also be doing direct counts in midway, essentially. So try to keep track of time at the last, at your last plating. You'll also be doing direct counts, and midway into 45 minutes, you'll also be doing it as well. So just keep that in mind, everyone. Group 3, I think you understood that, right? Juliet, perfect. Okay. No. Groups 1 to 2, you guys are also aware that you're going to be doing direct counts at 45 minutes. Groups 4 to 6, you guys know that you're going to do direct counts at 45 minutes and 90 minutes. Please make sure that you're doing aseptic technique, either with the pipette still at the middle bench, or with the glass pipette that you used earlier. You may find it easier to use the pipette tips, the plastic ones, which are down at that end where Eunice is. So just bear that in mind. You could use a P1000 or P200 to take out respectively for P200 up to 100 or 200 microliters, and then a P1000 for up to 1 mil. So you could use either or, but use the P1000 and it'll make things easier. Did I? Okay, so how many groups are ready for viable counting? Raise your hand. Your groups. So I'll show both groups. So Stephanie, I'll show you as well as Eunice, and group 4, you guys can come as well. The guy is not there. The guy is not there. Each group can have two members come here for direct counting, while the other two keep track of time for the viable counts for your plates. Remember, aseptic technique, your L rods need to be sterilized and cooled before actually placing in the bacterium, so that way the bacteria are not cross-contaminated, but also respectively not burned in the agar plate. Now, on one, six, we need two members of the group here. I need two members actually, there should be also a tree for a kid. You have three. And so you do it in your bed. You don't actually, so now, but essentially each bench will have their own. So the goal is to follow 45 minutes and 90 minutes. I need one more group. One more group needs members here for direct counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
I think that room. I'm just gonna back. Yeah.
Here for direct counting. So let's go. 45 minutes and 90 minutes following incubation, right? So there's no timing. You're going to be doing direct counting. The slide is shown there. Essentially, you're going to be taking out the you're going to take the idea is the following. You essentially you grab in these epitopes, right? With small epitopes, wherein you put 250 microliters of the dye. As they just did right now, you can label with your point at the specific time point you're in. And then after that 250 mils, you take a septic leak, which is another 250 mils, from the 45-minute incubation from the plaque directly. You can also use the dot pipette because that's what you're feeding and remember when you use the dot pipette or you have a pipette with five, is that in case it is here. It could fit 250 notes, you can also use the dot pipette. But the idea is to you have to go out and sleep. So the idea is that essentially once you're done, that should be 500 years. How much years? We're going to have different files that of yourself, the guy, and then essentially small aliquot, we typically use 0.1 like 100 microliters. And also because there's only a finite amount of brushes in power lab, you want to make very careful. You have to make sure you're not crossing The idea is that essentially your animal just at the midway, not on the glass itself, but in between the glass and the petrol concentrate, essentially right between the glass and the grid, and then the sheep. And then essentially what we do is we may have to do back up. Just bear that in mind. It's one for and then any function. Try to get at the edge once your group is done. Also, once your group is done counting, because you will see the grid itself, using the microscope, you can grab it from the bench spot. I do want you guys to pay attention because only 2 group members need to do this because the other members should focus on your place. So please bear that in mind. Once your group is done, please return the Petrov Osser grids because we only have 4. And so each group can only use it for a small amount of time, for 45 minutes and not 90 minutes. Pretty much at the end of your incubation cycle. So just bear that in mind. Hopefully, if you have questions. Where do I have that check? Like you return the back, this is one right. Another idea, you can also do it on your bench. So that way you still are close by to the foundation. I would also recommend, yeah, bear in mind to bring back the 1,000. So just make sure I hear a lot of clinking. Make sure that your glass is not, breaking in any way. And if you find that it's fragile, let me know. Remember, groups, if you have the incubator on, it needs to, actually, if you're done, please make sure that you put it back on shaking and you close it. Reason being is we want to maintain the temperature at 37 degrees. So please be mindful of this. As well as groups, make sure you're doing a separate technique. One, you don't want to do it like that. On math, you're just going in one and you get one. How about that? And on the back. So where the microphones? If you, okay, if you, that's a good question. So if you, let's say, I'm gonna answer it as well here. If your group is, so two things for everyone. If your group has a grid for direct counting, please make sure that you have a microscope as well. It was in the benches, or sorry, in the middle bench in the trays that you had from last week underneath the bench itself. However, please make sure that you return back once you're done, 45 minutes and at 90 minutes incubations. Once you are done, please bring it back to the middle bench. If a group is waiting, this is my advice. Just place in from your log, essentially the flasks that you had at 45 minutes and at 90 minutes. Place it immediately into the dye. And then as you wait, you'll be able to hopefully take the microscopic readings. And that should be okay. But in the meantime, groups that have the Petrov Hauser grids, please make sure you return them back once you're done. You should be using a microscope to be able to determine the cell counts. And if you have questions, let me know. You should see 16 small grids, and I'll be able to help you if you're having difficulty. But go to 10 times magnification. Please make sure you also hold a microscope carefully and are not like construing it in its use. Make sure that you're holding it carefully, that a Bunsen burner is not on too close, because otherwise you run the risk of getting yourself or the microscope in trouble. So just please keep that in mind. Whose Bunsen burner is on too high? I smell smoke on. Please keep it as minimal as you can, especially if you're using the microscope. You ideally won't need it unless another group, your other pair members are using the other side for plating. So keep that in mind. One side could focus on a microscope, the other side for plating. Yes. Yeah, that's it. But you're doing it for 45 minutes and 90 minutes. So you're going to have 2 tubes. Anyone having difficulty? Any questions? It should be done. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, I already have.
Did you take it out or you just
No, I put it back in.
Yep.
Yeah.
If groups need any instruments, just let me know. The cords for microscopes can be found here. Some of them are a bit tangible. I recommend at least 2 pairs of each group. At least take out a microscope. I see one group doesn't have one. So just please bear that in mind. Group 5. Sorry, group 2. Not group 5, sorry. Group 2, you guys can grab one.
Oh, this is the
Or if you want. No problem.
Thank you so much.
That sounds like.
How do you guys do it?
Please make sure your cotton swabs for your plaques are not too deep in, otherwise it makes it difficult for the second technique. Check this confirm, but I believe it's. Give me just 1 minute. It won't be 1 mil because you only have 0.5. Just add a drop. So if you guys need help, I would say just add 10 microliters. A very small amount will work from your pipette tips themselves, the small ones, right? For the Petrov Oster grids. You don't use the glass pipette, right? But just bear a few things in mind. So in terms of like splitting up as groups, I would bear in mind that as you have other results from the past week, conjugation for your mini lab report, your transformation as well for efficiency from last week. We'll be using the UV light as well. So when your group is ready, we can go forward with that. You have as well your plaque assay, which hopefully you guys should be able to do, but I'll write some points down and hopefully you guys can be able to work around it in the meantime. For status, how many of you are actually, what time point are you in incubation? Group 4? 1 hour? 45 minutes? For your class? Oh, you're all together? Perfect. 55 minutes? 1 hour? Perfect. What? How many? 45 minutes? Okay. Group 3, what was your time point for incubation? Let's see. So some of you may be close, like tight in timing, so I would just recommend that you are able to complete the rest of today's practical easily. What I mean by this is that you have the rest of the two parts to complete, right? So what does that include? As you can see on the board, I touched upon conjugation, transformation, the streak plates, and your plaque assay. Plaque assay is very important as well as the conjugation, but you should be able to also record observations for your transformation and streak plating. Remember, streak plating you did individually, so you should be able to see how your streak performance occurred or what the result is. Essentially, you should ideally see 3 different quadrants with colonies. One, your largest one with a large smear, the second one with some colonies visible, and the third one with like the final quadrant with individual colonies detectable. If you cannot see this, record it in your results. Show this as well in your figures. And sorry, record what you see in your figure description with your caption. Everyone, please pay attention because it's very important that you keep this in mind for your lab report, your lab manual, your annual lab notebook, essentially. You need to make sure you have descriptive results. I've noticed that some of you may have, many of you are, this is good, and make sure that for those that aren't, you have clear descriptive captions, figure labels with deduction as to what you see, what species you are dealing with, and essentially, if you're using slides and images, the magnification and other features that you have shown. Make note as well that the plates that you're using, the dilutions for your plaque assay. Remember everyone, for reading week, I need to make sure that you have clear detailed notebooks. And I also want to be able to record your observations as well. So please bear that in mind for your lab performance. I want to make sure that you guys are doing well and stellar essentially. So I'm going to write some points down. Make sure you have them in your lab notebook because they are important for you for reading week to complete. I'm going to write them down in a minute or so. Okay. So I have some of them already shown as part 2. Streak plating. I'm going to lift up the slide. So the following. Rahma, can you see this from your side or no? Okay, so A is streak plating, right? So you saw your results, hopefully the individual results. If anyone hasn't been able to grab them, they're at the top of the second fridge, top left side. So you'll have likely your name labeled with your group, so you guys can essentially distribute your plates all together. Bear in mind that your plates after last week would have been done in the following manner. Nothing's broken, right, Stephanie? No? So remember your streaking result. I'm just going to show us another marker. Anyone took a marker here? Because I'm supposed to have more. I had a few with me. Okay. Perfect. Okay. So your streaking would have been done in the following manner, right? First quadrant, second quadrant, and then third one as well. All of them are supposed to be connected, right? As I mentioned last week. But essentially, polished incubation after 24 hours, overnight incubation, you should likely see smearing in your first, and then slowly individual colonies. So bear that in mind. I made them appear as like streaks, but essentially from your results, you should see sparse colonies, especially in your last one, which is the third quadrant curve here. That's streaking for your streak plating. Next one I have is conjugation. This is shown, actually, I'll make it labeled in another way. Just to have other members of your group keeping track of time in the meantime. But you can also keep in mind that whatever I'm writing here needs to be included in your results with detailed descriptions. So this is conjugation. Remember, last week we had 3 plates, right? Who knows what the three plates are? This side, anyone? Anyone? Okay, I'll see. Essentially, you have three plates. You had each with different conditions. I'm going to split them up. For the first two, you had HT99 on one side and J53R. Two different types of strains. One's octotrophic. Have a look in your lab manual to know what that means and which one it is. But there are two different types of strains of E. coli, right? E. coli and Italicenes, right? Especially for your lab report. Now, you have results that should indicate for one of the antibiotics, chloramphenicol, I'll put CHL for short, as it's shown probably in your plate, and rifamycin. Each have different dosages. One is 25, and then one is at 100. And the idea is that because you made smears of 1-drop spread on either side, one of them should essentially have and be indicative of a successful growth, meaning one of the two colonies is essentially resistant for a given antibiotic. Please bear in mind that if one of your group members in each group is not paying attention, I can't repeat this more than once because we're doing a lot of things at once and it makes it difficult and not inefficient for the entire lab. So please at least have one member of your group paying attention, another group member keeping track of time. You have, remember once again for conjugation, 3 plates. I'm going to repeat this one more time. HT99 on one side, J53 on the other. And on the first 2 plates, 2 different types of antibiotics separately, 2 different dosages. The last plate has both combined. The reason it's combined is because you're doing conjugation, meaning as you let it grow for 1 to 2 hours at 37 degrees, right? Bear in mind, this is like your flow chart showing and indicating the different conditions you had. You should hopefully have the 2 bacterium conjugate, meaning one of their plasmid horizontal gene transfer should have essentially crossed through such that the resistant gene, so actually both the bacterium, or at least one of them, should have both resistant genes or both plasmids. Essentially, both genes for resistance of chloramphenicol and rifamycin, meaning following that conjugation, you should see colonies on your 3rd plate. If you don't, and this is for each group member of each bench, right? For all plates, record your observations. But this is something to bear in mind also for your lab report and in your manual, because at least for conjugation, right? Because there's different for the other exercises, you have different parts to keep in mind. For this part, you need to describe if you don't see any colonies, why you don't see them. Could it be that you burned essentially your bacterium before incubating them following aseptic technique? Could it be maybe that you didn't resuspend the bacterium post-conjugation as mentioned last week? Could it be that maybe you actually didn't add in the bacterium for conjugation, right? It was 0.1 mils of HT99 and 0.9 mils of J53R. So bear all of these different factors. I just mentioned 3 limitations. Keep all of them in mind for your mini lab report. For your formal lab report, which is where the plaque assay comes in, I'll actually talk about transformation because that's more easier just before the plaque assay, before the end of today's class. Transformation, we did similar to last week for the spread plating and counting your colony. Very similar here, except you have a different formula. By the way, anyone wants to burn on to live? That's good. It's not in use right now, then you should shut up. It is. And, just make sure that you actually close. I didn't close mine because I was using it for a relatively short amount of time. But that great canister, if it's not regularly in use, it could be closed. Thank you. Now, transformation, you have the formula. I'm gonna also show it to you guys. I don't think it's shown here. Actually, it could be. It could be on the slides. And that may make it easier. Okay, so I'll write it down for you guys. You guys can, at the meantime, just keep each other in the loop as to what's next. I do want to show you, though, just before we end off, bear in mind, just be a bit patient. The formula. So starting off, the plasmid concentration. One of you asked this, and I'm very happy that the student asked this. Reason being is because you're paying close attention to the practical and also for the exercises from last week, right? So conjugation, transformation, bear in mind that you have a plasmid, right? The plasmid is what's going to indicate how well your transformation efficiency turned out. And you're going to be using that cardboard box where the UV light will be turned on to see the color of your colonies, which ideally should be green, right? Because according to what we had from last week, you had the pGLO plasmid that included GFP as one of the gene markers, so that you should be able to see green colonies. Anyone's Bunsen burner on too high? Okay, so it's not clear to be seen here. But in the meantime, you have the table shown in page 66. And even in general, just keep in mind what I've touched upon before. You have the following. The number of colonies, right? For your pGLO plasmid, following essentially you have the four plates based on the observations you see in your table. You keep those details in mind, but for calculations, this is what you need to do. To calculate efficiency, you can also find it in your lab manual. It's just not shown directly here for me. I'm just trying to see if there's another way. Number of ones to calculate. First part. So I'm not given more clear details. Has anyone received a specific formula for transformation efficiency? Generally speaking, it's the number of transforming colonies, so the number of colonies you see, divided by the plasmid concentration. I'm going to just show a few other details. The number of colonies for which plate? The ARA1, the last one, your fourth plate, is the one you're going to see under the microscope, under the UV light to showcase green colonies. That's going to represent your more direct and concrete transformation efficiency, divided by the concentration. And that concentration is 0.0005 micrograms. Actually, I'm going to rewrite that. Per microliter. And actually, based on the volume you use, you should be able to deduce exactly what that transformation efficiency is, accounting for the volume that you use. Right? So bear that in mind. 0.0, did you use 0.1 mils, which in our case was the case. So you just multiply by 100 because that's 100 microliters. So multiply that value and you should be able to get the number of colonies. Let me just see if there's anything else. Any questions in the meantime? If your group is done, by the way, for the time points, you can place them in the top left side for incubation. Remember, you flamed your the flask. Just remember aseptic technique. Oh, and I didn't mention just before I answer. Okay, midway. Your question first, and then I'll answer yours. What's your question? .25 of the dye. Sorry, 0.25 of the dye, and 0.25 of your cells into one new epitope. Wait, just adding cell. So you So before I end off, there's also before I go to continue transformation, go to conjugation. If your group is done the 45-minute time point, a kind reminder, there are groups that may also need the Petrov-Foster grid. So please return it back to the middle bench. We can't afford to essentially leave it just on our group blocks. So please return it back. There's a group that needs it right now. So if you could please return it, that'd be appreciated. If you haven't done your 45 minutes, it's okay if you had it suspended already in the die and you're waiting now until 90 minutes. You could do both of them, but I recommend that if your group has the grid that you use for the microscope, please return it back once you're done immediately. Like in the next 2 minutes, there should be an opportunity for group number 1 to grab one. Thanks a lot. Now I'm just gonna go straight. If there's no other questions, let me just pause and see if everyone else is okay, and then I'll go near the end, talk about 2 other points, concluding a few other reminders, and then hopefully we'll be able to look at results later on. Yeah. If you use the viable count guys, please do not essentially put yourself inside here, because if another group asks and wants to use it, they may not know that you're already have cells in the sides. Remember, you have all instruments labeled in your benches. Now I'll go straight ahead to a bit more details for not transformation, but the plaque assay.
That one that you're saying, is the third stage. Next, we have 2 little colonies, so I'm just gonna say that we may have done an error. Okay.
But yes, based on
And then all the transformation you were saying, gonna count transformation efficiency using only the ARA, right? And that's something like.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
If you can as well, for the other place, that would be good. Really, they're only within a range.
Yes.
And that's what we did. Generally speaking, that should be okay. At least for the last.
I'll when I get them all up. Okay, thank you.
So, to continue this, just want to make sure everyone's also aware. Remember, there are two different deadlines. Actually, there's three. And unless otherwise Dr. Brunn refers to adjusting those deadlines, you'll know. Then remember, for what you have, the plaque assay. Plaque assay is what you're dealing with for the formal lab report. I do want to give a disclaimer as well. The PowerPoint slides are not always adjusted from because there are new changes that we just saw earlier. You're not doing Spec 20 results continuously. But at least what I can tell you is that this is part of your FLR. Meaning you need to be able to, and this is due March 1st, or sorry, March 3rd. Bear in mind the following. That you're able to count the number of PFUs, similar to last week, where essentially you have 4 different plates, I believe, 4 different plates for 10 to the minus 2 or 3. Oh, like what's the range? I know it goes up to 7 or 6. 40, so okay, so then if we go, let's say to 10 to the minus 4, all the way to 10 to the minus 7, you did serial dilution, 0.1 mils following each addition, right? Into these plates. Now, importantly, for your plaque assay, remember, okay, this is very important, so just please pay attention. At least you need to have at least 2 members of your group paying attention, so that way they can relay this information to you. If you need help, also look back in the manual, but just bear in mind, I want to be able to at least clarify a few things. Now, I came to realize that perhaps some of you are almost done. So what could be done instead is going over this at the end. Okay, so maybe in the last 15 minutes, I'll go over what you need to keep in mind for reading week. But in the meantime, I don't want to distract you. Just keep in mind what I talked about for the plaque assay. You're doing similar arrangements from last week. You're counting the number of PFUs, which is pretty much the open circles. That indicates essentially your bacteriophage, because the bacteriophage would have killed or lysed, essentially following the lytic cycle E. coli, right? So it would have killed your bacterium. And so you're counting the number of open circles. Then you just follow the similar step of transformation calculations, just multiplying it by the final dilution factor. If it's 10 to the minus 4, and you find 20 plaques, that's too few, but let's say you had 35 plaques, 35 times 10 to the power of 4, you get the inverse exponent. That's going to give you 350,000 colonies, PFUs actually, which are plaque forming units per mil. So I'll write that down, but just keep details like this in mind as your other group members keep track of timing. Group 1, did you guys get the grid? No? Okay, I need to ask who is not using a microscope right now? Group 2. Group 3. Sorry, you're group 6. Sorry. Group 6, are you guys using the grid? Are you waiting to use a grid? Using it? Who is done counting at least at one time point? 45 minutes. Direct count. Group 3, are you guys done? Yes or no? To look at it? That was your question? Okay, perfect. Group 2. So, okay, this is what I'm gonna ask. your groups have just one member go to each of the other groups, ask them as soon as they're done, like to actually give it to you. Because I don't want you guys to afford timing. Technically, you guys are good in timing, but I don't want you to miss out for direct counting. So you guys, and you have half an hour, which is okay. But I do want to ask the other four groups, after I reach out to reach group 3, need to return back the direct counts. Thank you.
So good answer.
Just for context, direct counting, you really just need to do one time point. I'm happy that you guys are like in the ambition of doing at least 2, which is good, because that's what's actually mentioned on the slide. But generally speaking, if your group has already done 1, please let the other groups use it because they haven't gotten the opportunity to see their slide. Just to bear in mind, some of you also may have this problem of adding in too much dye. Just add in at max 15 microliters, even 10 is good enough from my past experience, but essentially it should work well. Otherwise, if you added in too much, just redo it and then let another group member use the other hemocytometer or the Petrov Osser grade. They're all like similar. That's okay. That's okay. So you could describe it, but it's technically okay. You expect there to be growth? Think about it. There's like these are regular bacteria, right? So shouldn't they grow? They should grow. Now what you find here is that it could be like other forms of bacteria born. So this is okay. It's small. It's actually a large meal bacteria. But if you look at your other ones, you find individual colonies based on the restrictions that they have, like if there's ampicillin antibiotic, and you likely will see colonies that are antibiotic or ampicillin resistant. You want to keep both these things in mind and whether or not they're positive or negative. With positive we did like this one name. No, it's just about for some of your controls, you may just see a large smear of colonies. You could just describe it as such for the LB negative or minus plasmid control. That indicates essentially you see a large smear and growth of colonies, which is expected. Question from your group? Question from your group? Yeah. Okay.
Because we're predicting, we'll deal with, we'll start looking at everything. Maybe, yeah, because we're gonna do it at 9 AM. Unless you want to say, forget that, and we'll keep looking at all things. The direct contact, yeah, we can do that, yeah, if you want. Okay.
You can have one member of each group to take in your transformed colony plates to the front where the UV is located. Definitely don't start to come on there. Like I don't want to guys to do it without me being present because of the safety wise I have to be taken into account. No one use the UV without me being present, please. Until then, have at least one member of each group go there. Your other group members focus on the other observations that will be recorded and taking photos of for your other group members.
Did you guys take out the web?
Go to starting off at 10x, you'll see the grid more clearly, and then go down from there. You can hopefully see how many die, your bacteria. If it's hard to see and you see colonies or clusters, you estimate based on the number of colonies per cluster and the number of clusters you find. You just multiply and reduce the number of colonies in total. So you just look at the number of squares, and then deduce the number of clusters that you see, and the average of per colony. You will be able to tell them. Just let me know if you have more direct for magnification. Don't use it. Let's use microscope.
Yeah.
So, this drink is your triple treated wheat, essentially. The era.
And none of you. I know.
Some of you also have qualities on other plates before that as well.
No.
If your group hasn't shown it to me as of yet, you can do so as well. Please make sure there are two groups that need to do direct counting. Please return that petrol positive grids to the middle bench so they can collect them. Once you're done today's lab, you can also return the rest of the belongings that you have placed. Record all data, you can take photos if needed, and then when you're officially done, you can place it into the autoclave or return them. I would recommend disposing of them because there's so many. But if you need further analysis, let me know. Remember, aseptic technique when you're dealing with pipetting as well.
So all of them except the one that had.
How many kids haven't done their transformation yet for visualizing the columns? If you haven't done it, please bring your place right now. In the meantime, I'm just going to change the slides to reflective practice. How are we doing for incubation? Group 1, what's your time place? You done? Okay. But apart from that, group 2, how many, Crystal? How many minutes remaining for your group? Are you guys done? Okay, confirm with her as soon as you can. Group 3, how many minutes? Perfect. When your plates are done, you can convert them into the incubator. Thank you so much. Group 4, how many more minutes?
We're done.
You done?
Yeah.
Group 5,
One, so the,
that's okay. Group 5, how many more minutes? How many more minutes until you're done? You done 90? Perfect. Group 6, 17. I don't think you guys have. I don't think.
With every,
Okay. In the meantime, let every number of people complete the rest. Is everything else correct?
yeah.
Except for the transformation. Okay, so let them continue counting. Anything else? I would just at least begin because I don't think I'm. Well, just
Okay.
not for concern, but just to recall that there is only a finite amount.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Just before I go forward, group 6, Liba, how many more minutes? Are you guys done? How long? If you could be done at 5. So everyone, just want to remind you, you only have 12 minutes for the end of today's practical, so you can begin cleaning up shortly. However, bear in mind, many of you will also have correctly answered some of the questions shown here in the lab manual, in the slides and in the manual. So just bear that in mind that you complete them for reading week. Also, these are questions to help prepare you, right? Even for Wednesday or tomorrow. Bear in mind also the timing for your exam, the test. But these are questions to go through. Also for reflective practice, I need each group, and in fact each member ideally, but each group to please complete this and send this to me over reading week. Because if you're done and you have it done as a group, you could give it to me now. That's perfect. But for timing, I need to make sure at least you guys are able to understand this, to reflect correctly, and we could also go over this if needed. Actually, likely if you can, try to complete this today. In the next 10 minutes, it should be doable. Each member could do one question, and then you could go over it with me if you have pressing questions. Apart from that and the transformed colonies, I'll end off near the end talking about the last 2 points about your marks and also the conjugation, transformation, the plaque assay. And that should end off today. Just a large smear, colony, spread of. has done direct? Who has not done direct counting? Raise your hand. There are two groups that haven't done it as of yet. I need to ask if any other group can please give the grade, please, to the first two groups on the left-hand side of today's practice.
Give it to the other. Maybe it was the child who decided to. But there's these both was okay. Which ones was the fluorescence, right? Yeah. Okay. We'll probably label it. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. You guys want to talk about.
Make sure that's one of the calculation of OCDs from the cell densities, from the viable counts. You're including the volume that you added. Generally speaking, you would have added 10 microliters or 15. So just make sure you put the right units for the petrol pulsar plates or distance. 0.1 milliliters equal to 10 microliters. So just make sure you use the right units, essentially. Have you used? Yes, the one that you added in into the grid.
Yeah, it does. There's the original cell density is the thing. So the original cell
Right here.
all of us involved.
And so you could use the same one. But the reason I'm saying it now is that you need to include the right units essentially for the calculation.
What is that?
Not into the square itself. Well, okay, you have that option, but you just simply could multiply by the amount that you added. Because otherwise, it would be very difficult to denote how much you added.
BIOC thing? Right. The number of cells counted
That is
divided
the
by,
formula.
this is the formula. So this value,
Yeah.
which is not these two added together, right? It's just
No.
the one drop that you add to this. But it
Actually,
tells us one of the little. It's 5 times 10 to the negative 8. Ooh, I don't have that, but I also had the not.
both should be similar. I'm just going to confirm.
Yeah.
Before I touch upon this is very subtle because essentially, either way how you interpret it, you have a fixed amount of cells within the square, and essentially considering the dilution, I would say of the original, right, like the 0.5 dilution, you take that into account. Well, you don't have to. That's another approach. It's for the same thing with cytometer counting. It's a bit different, but yes. Answer. Is it okay if I go? So just before you leave today, few final reminders. One is that when you're doing your counts, bear in mind you use the right units, volumes as well. I did mention as well for conjugation, it's for your mini report, but your formal lab report is your plaque assay. So just bear in mind you're doing the calculation as mentioned earlier. You're multiplying the number of colonies that you see by your final dilution factor. If you had 35 colonies, this really pretty much answers what I said earlier. 35 colonies in a plate that's 10 to the negative 5. Then you're multiplying it by the inverse, meaning it's 10 to the power of 5, right? Meaning you're adding in 5 zeros. You're going to get pretty much 3.5 million cells. So 3.5 million cells are actually PFUs because your units are plaque forming units per mil. And that is essentially what you see, not as clearly colonies, but as plaques. I'm going to write that down. You guys could take photos, that's okay. But just to confirm. Because you're going to take the inverse, it's pretty much divided by 10 to the negative. It's essentially multiplied. It looks like this. So just to clarify for everyone, the open dots you see flat, that is the assay itself. Those are your bacteriophages, and that's what you're calculating here. Not E. coli colonies, but essentially the number of plaques or bacteriophages that have led to lysis within your plates. So if you have 35 dots or 35 plaques at 10 to the negative 5 plate, you're dividing or multiplying by 10 to the power of 5. 10 to the power of 5 times 35 is going to give you 3.5 million PFUs or plaque forming units per mil. Keep note of units. Question begin? Yes.
For part, you have to calculate like the transformation efficiency. But then like you have to ask you for the
I wrote it in.
those already there? Okay.
Plasmid concentration, sorry, is it okay if I say it again? Is 0.005 micrograms per microliter. Bear in mind the unique units for this plasmid concentration. So that way you're hopefully able to multiply by the volume to deduce essentially your transformation efficiency. Yes.
So you said that was there was three, one of them was killed it. The three
Yes.
what were the
You didn't resuspend well, and if you actually didn't have the right volume, let's say you added like 10 times less bacteria.
like the donor and
Yes. If you didn't put the right ratio together, it will also improve.
but that is if you would get. So if we didn't get a colony, then the latter one.
The last.
Like that's
And if you think of others, you can listen. No.
Because
They can, yes. I'm gonna just share that. Any group that hasn't found PFUs, before you leave, two final reminders. Besides cleanup, PFUs, I need to ask, how many groups were not able to get successful plating results? For conjugation, raise your hand. For conjugation, raise your hand. Okay? For conjugation, your task is to ask another group to see what the results are, compare with yours, and describing in discussion why. For the plaque assay, raise your hand. How many groups weren't able to get values? Because the plaque assay is important for your FLR. Only one group? Your group as well, right? You got results for plaque assay? Perfect. So your group get results from their group or any other group to see how many values they got. Maybe even from this group, just ask them for their table or their results and observations, and you can do the following calculations. Any other groups missing data? Be it for transformation, yeah? Okay. For transformation, anyone losing data or not having data? If not, then that's okay. That's good. I would just say thus, describe in your lab notebook all of your results here. The difference for your lab report is you're going to be more specific for the plaque assay. And I'm not sure if they are still giving you a mini lab report. If they are, then they'll likely give it to you for conjugation because it was switched from last year. Apart from that, please make sure that your group finishes the reflective practice questions and submits them to me in reading week. I need to make sure that you guys have them and in fact should give them to me before our next lab 2 weeks from now. And following that, I say have an amazing reading week, have an amazing exam or midterm for BIOC17. It's great to have you guys once again. Make sure that you clean up your benches before you leave. Make sure no Bunsen burners are left on. Make sure as well that ethanol is kept far away from your Bunsen burner. Make sure as well, once you're done with the microscopes, you can return them or actually leave them there. There is something else that is important, and that is your plates. If you're confirmed, taken all photos, you could place them in an autoclave. Please bear in mind you've taken all results for your figures, for your observations from the table, for your essentially transformation lab 2 results or second week results. And apart from that, if you have any other questions, let me know. Thank you. Yeah.
With the direct accounting and so we were gonna do the 90-minute instead and just restart
That's
do
okay.
the new solution, but I guess she didn't grab a new graph and make a new solution. She just tried to redo it with the same solution and died. She just like cleaned it off.
Yep.
And tried to count again. And yeah, we don't have anything for O3. It didn't work again. So
Is it still there or is it gone?
she cleaned it out.
gone.
Okay, good news is it's not like, okay, how do I say it? Not necessarily. No. The thing is like, so in the past and with that spec 20 results, like, okay, let's see if there's any other group that hasn't Actually, what you could do is find any other group that has a microscope still, ask them to like either give them their results, give you their results, or even just have a look at their columns. It's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind. It's okay.
Okay, many okay, many is with conjugation, and the transformation stuff, that's just for our own knowledge, for based on our results from last week.
Yes.
And then we submit the reflection to during reading week or during, okay, we mentioned something like
That's it.
okay, and then the reflective per, like per minute, or is it per individual?
Group.
Per group.
In this case, it's group.
And then do we like just email?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could share with your group like their names, that would be nice.
Yeah, we're just like,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
okay.
perfect.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, reading.
Likewise, both of you having been all of that. So we'll use everyone place their belongings correctly and shut off the right? You saying okay? I know some of you are Yes. So that's under, you don't have to get that. And the thing with that's why where should these be placed? Okay. You're doing great. I know sometimes it's a bit tense, but you guys are doing your best, and that's all I ask, you know. So don't worry, and don't feel essentially down, especially when things come. Overall, very happy and if you have any questions, let me know. Always happy to help. This tip is very low. Everyone retrieve backward too, so that this needs some power of that. Yeah. The next or actually possible. It's able to be clear. Unless let's see, I don't think I don't think for now I'll see if there is
We are performing in the lab. No, none of the marks are
Yeah.
sensitive.
So essentially,
No, we were not.
yes, I would say if you want, you can also email me. Reason being is because that is true. Really, for now, I just have the unknown assignment marked, and or at least really, it's there's limited information that is provided to really assess. Apart from how I see you guys perform in the lab. So generally speaking, I want to keep in mind that you're paying attention. You're like your conduct as well. You're trying to stay organized. You're splitting up when needed in your groups, and you're trying to finish on time as much as possible. I know for your group, it's understandable because of like different things that occurred and they're not your fault. So inshallah, let me know if you find like, let's say, there's an underestimation, then even anyone from group one and essentially from group one, if you guys have concerns, then and just remind me because I'll be honest, this is like I also want to be fair, but it's I understand that these are things that you guys weren't expecting, nor was I. So I don't want you guys to be penalized unfairly. No problem. Take care. Yeah.
Right? So the more you stay, the less time.
I wanted to help you out clean up. That's why. I normally want to help you
Oh,
out. I
no,
don't-
you get the students clean up. You shouldn't clean up. The students,
Okay.
so like putting stuff away.
Yeah.
You tell the students to do.
Yes. So I've told them for the benches, but I was saying like in your case, if you want me to help you, like in any. Okay.
You'll be helping me if you just leave out time.
Okay.
Okay, that's the biggest
Okay.
help.
Okay.